At 74, I thought loneliness was my biggest problem. It wasn't. Loneliness doesn't empty your bank account. It doesn't move money at 2 in the morning. It doesn't sit across from you at breakfast pretending nothing happened. My biggest mistake wasn't falling in love, it was giving her access. I had spent 42 years building stability, paid off house, retirement accounts I understood, savings I tracked the way some men track sports scores. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't naive. At least, that's what I told myself. When you've buried a wife, eaten dinner alone for 3 years, and grown used to a quiet house, companionship feels like oxygen. You don't question oxygen. You just breathe it. She didn't look like a threat. She looked like relief. And when she asked to simplify things by sharing access to my savings, it didn't feel dangerous. It felt practical, mature, efficient. The night I got the bank alert, I didn't panic. I stared at the number because nothing illegal had happened. Everything was authorized, and that's the part you need to hear. Sometimes the biggest mistakes in your life don't break the law. They just break your future. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm not a man who lived carelessly. I retired at 71 after running a regional logistics company for nearly 3 decades. I understood contracts. I understood percentages. I understood risk. When something didn't make sense on paper, I walked away. By the time I retired, my house was paid off. My retirement accounts were diversified. I met with my financial advisor twice a year, like clockwork. I wasn't guessing my way through money. I respected it. My wife, Margaret, and I built that life together. When she passed, the numbers didn't change. The structure was still there. The plan was still intact. What changed was the silence. Even my kids would tell you I was cautious, thoughtful, slow to decide. That's what makes this harder to admit. I wasn't fooled because I was careless. I was fooled because I was alone. I met her at a community fundraiser, nothing dramatic. Folding chairs, weak coffee, a speaker nobody could quite hear. She sat beside me and made a joke about the microphone cutting out. I laughed harder than the joke deserved. Her name was Linda, 67, recently divorced, 2 grown daughters in another state. She said she wasn't looking for anything serious, just companionship, just someone to talk to. That sounded safe. We started with coffee, then dinners, then Sunday afternoons that didn't feel so quiet anymore. She asked about Margaret, my late wife, and listened without trying to compete with a memory. That felt respectful. She paid for her own meals, insisted on it. Told me more than once, "Tom, I don't need your money. I've managed on my own for years." That felt reassuring. 6 months passed before finances ever came up. It wasn't a demand. It was a suggestion. She said it would be easier if we shared access for travel expenses and shared bills when she stayed over. Just practical, she said. At our age, we shouldn't complicate things. And she was right about one thing. At our age, we crave simplicity. I didn't see red flags. I saw comfort. And comfort, when you've been alone long enough, feels like proof of safety. It isn't. The first transfer was small, $5,000. She didn't hide it. She told me before I noticed. Said her car needed repairs and her account was tied up for a few days. "I'll move it back next week," she said. Calm, direct, no drama. And she did. That's what made it dangerous, because when someone repays you quickly, it builds credibility. It quiets doubt. It turns a question into proof. I told myself this was what partnership looked like: flexible, supportive, mature. A month later, it was 8,000, this time for a short-term investment her cousin had mentioned. Low risk, she said. We'll both benefit. I hesitated, not because I thought she was lying, but because I heard my son's voice in my head. Dad, keep things separate. I didn't want to look suspicious. I didn't want to be the old man who couldn't trust, so I approved it. Nothing exploded, no alarms, no arguments, just another small decision that felt reasonable. That's how lines move, not with a shove, with a nudge. The shift wasn't sudden, it was cumulative. After the small transfers came shared plans. She talked about a modest condo near the coast. Not now, she'd say, just someday. She showed me listings the way people show vacation photos, casually, playfully. Then her son needed help. He was between jobs. A good kid, she said, just unlucky. It's temporary, she promised. We'll draft something simple. He'll pay it back. The loan wasn't enormous. Not at first, $20,000. Then another 10 for unexpected expenses. Each time, she framed it as support, not sacrifice, partnership, not pressure. I started to notice something else. Every financial conversation happened when we were relaxed, after dinner on a quiet Sunday, when saying no felt heavier than saying yes. My daughter called one evening and asked gently, "Dad, are you keeping things separate?" I heard caution in her voice. I also heard judgment. I defended Linda. That's when I crossed a line I didn't see. When you begin defending someone's access to your money against your own children, you're no longer evaluating risk. You're protecting comfort. And comfort, when mixed with access, becomes leverage. I didn't see a trap. I saw a future. The alert came on a Tuesday. I remember that because Tuesdays were quiet. No plans, no distractions, just coffee, the newspaper, and whatever small routines retirement leaves you with. My phone buzzed. Large withdrawal. I assumed it was a mistake, a misclick, a transfer I'd forgotten approving. I opened the app calmly, scrolled once, then twice. $240,000, not pending, completed. The account was joint. Her name was on it. The authorization was clean, legal, signed months earlier when I believed we were building something permanent. I called her. It went to voicemail. I drove to her condo. The car was gone, curtains drawn, no note, no argument, no dramatic goodbye, just absence. That was the moment I understood something cold and simple. Nothing illegal had happened, nothing I could reverse with a lawyer. I had given access. And access, once granted, doesn't require betrayal to do damage. It only requires opportunity. I stood in that parking lot longer than I care to admit. Not shocked, just aware. It took me months to admit what really happened. This wasn't about intelligence. I understood contracts. I understood numbers. I had read every document before adding her name to that account. What I didn't understand was loneliness. Loneliness doesn't make you reckless. It makes you generous. It makes you accelerate trust because silence feels heavier than risk. It makes shared access feel like intimacy. That's the part nobody warns men about after 70. We don't fear losing money as much as we fear going back to an empty house. So we rush what should be slow. We merge what should stay separate. We defend what should be questioned. The real lesson isn't don't love, it's this: access is more powerful than affection. Once someone has access to your finances, your passwords, your assets, they don't need to deceive you every day. The structure does the work for them. If you are over 60 and dating, protect your access first. Feelings can grow. Accounts can disappear. I'm not bankrupt. I still have my home. I still have enough to live comfortably. I will not be sleeping in my car or standing in a food line. But something shifted inside me that no investment portfolio can restore. It wasn't just the money. It was the realization that I traded decades of discipline for a short season of comfort. I convinced myself that sharing access meant sharing a future. I told myself that being cautious would make me look cold. I didn't want to be the suspicious old man, so I became the trusting one. If you are over 60 and stepping back into dating, understand this clearly. Love and access are not the same thing. You can open your heart without opening your accounts. You can share time without sharing control. Slow down anything that involves money. Keep accounts separate. Let trust grow in behavior, not in banking permissions. Because rebuilding savings at 35 is possible, rebuilding at 74 costs more than dollars. Protect what you spent your life building, even from loneliness.